So now we're going to measure the abiotic factors. And what we're hoping to get is a measurement of the discharge. Now, discharge is measured in cubic meters per second, or cumex. So all the units that we're going to be measuring in are going to be meters.
So to measure the discharge, you need 3 readings. You need the width of the river, you need the average depth of the river, and you need the average flow, or the average velocity of the river. So we're going to start off with measuring the width. Nice easy one first of all. So using a tape measure, we've simply set up the tape measure across the cross section of the river to measure, and we're simply just putting the tape measure next to the bit of the river that's full really, or the bit of the bank that's got water in it. So looking at what our reading is now then, for this certain section, nice and easy, it's pretty much exactly 22 meters width.
Now what we're going to do is we're going to divide that 22 meters up into 4 chunks, or 4 sections, so that we can then work out the cross section of each section and add them all together, and that makes it easier to work out the discharge. So behind me, Matt is measuring the depth of the river, and he's using a meter ruler to do that. Again, he's doing that at set intervals, so it's a systematic sample.
To measure the depth, we're just going to use, again, nice simple meter ruler. So when you're putting it in the water, obviously make sure 0 is at the bottom, okay, otherwise that'll give you an incorrect reading. And it's normally best if you put the meter ruler in so you've got a smaller cross section of the meter ruler exposed to the flow, because when you're in higher readings of flow or higher flow levels, then that will give you an incorrect reading, or it will be difficult to take the reading properly. So in this particular instance, we've got 15 centimeters, or 0.15 meters of reading. 0.27 meters, 0.19 meters, 0.17 meters.
We're then going to measure the flow rate at each of these 4 sections using a flow meter.
So to help us measure the flow, we're going to be using one of these flow meters. This is a fairly basic one. You probably can get more accurate ones than this, but for what we're doing today, it's pretty useful. And the way it works, you've got a impeller, okay, that sits in the bottom, and you put that down into the water, making sure it's facing upstream, making sure that yourself or any rocks or any plants aren't going to be any obstacles to that, making sure no weeds are getting sort of trapped around it, okay. And as you point it upstream, again, there's different sort of ways you can measure it, but we normally go for roughly about halfway up the depth, okay. But again, other people will do that differently. But as long as you're consistent, that's probably the main thing. So we're facing it upstream, and that then gives us a readout on the electronic box that we've got here. So currently it's telling me that the flow is around 0.4 meters per second, okay. And you could decide to take a reading every 10 seconds for a couple of minutes, or get an average over a few readings, yeah, which we'll probably do.
One limitation with these impellers is that if the water is moving too slowly, you won't get a reading. So you may have to change your methods depending on how quickly the river is moving. Another method you could use is the orange test, where you place an orange in the water and it floats downstream, and you measure the time that takes over a set distance.